So this is the Scalloped Buttonhole Chain Stitch. I really like this stitch because it makes a pretty decorative border. So we're going to start, it's a two-part stitch. First part is the chain stitch. So the way I start a chain is one tiny anchor stitch. Just a little stitch, it doesn't have to be big. And now I'm going to bring my next stitch up about here. And I'm going to take my thread and needle under this anchor stitch, just like that. Pull it all the way through. And then I'm going to take my needle and thread back down into that same spot where I first came up. And now my next stitch is going to come up and go under this previous stitch. And now every other stitch will be worked the same exact way. So I take my needle and thread through and do my next stitch the same exact way. So this is a two-part stitch. The first part is getting the chain stitch down, which I'm going to finish up, and then I will show you how to make the pretty scalloped edge. Okay, so I've finished up the chain stitch around the edge, and now I am I'm going to start with the orange. So I have my orange thread here, threaded my needle, and I'm going to, for the second part of this stitch, bring my needle up right at the beginning of one of the chains. So I'm going to bring it up and then take my needle through the loop of the chain and pull it all the way through, and it makes a little knot there, and I'm going to do that again. And each chain, I generally do this same motion. If these are the size of my chain stitches, I generally do 4 to 5 little knots like this, because I do want it to have a scalloped edge. I want it to look like it has a scalloped edge when it's done. So I've filled up the chain. I take my needle down through the end of that chain, and you can see I pull it nice and tight on the beginning and the end, and it has a little like a scalloped edge. And now I'm going to do the same exact thing. So the next chain, I start again, bring my needle up at the beginning of it, take my needle through the chain, and I'm going to stitch another 4 or 5 stitches. And again, pulling the beginning and the end stitches, the first and the last stitch, fairly tight, really emphasizes that scallop shape. And it looks like you have a nice ruffled edge along the end. So I'm going to continue doing this with each of the colors, and I'm going to work my way all around the color wheel. So I finished the inner border, the scalloped buttonhole chain stitch, and you can see how these both look together, the trellis spiral stitch and the buttonhole chain stitch. And I'll take you all the way around. You can see that this is a great stitch if you want to change colors of thread. You can easily do that all the way around. Another option, if you wanted to do both sides of the chain stitch with the scalloped part, you can definitely do that too. You would just see less of the black stitch, and you would see the scallop on both sides, which is a great option.